Suzy Patton is my name. I'm a guidance counselor at Cégep de Sainte-Foy, and I had the opportunity to be specialized more in terms of entrepreneurial pedagogy and educational entrepreneurship. And I have a lot of interesting people with me today that will help you discover some great stuff during this webinar. So, first, we're going to talk about how things will go for the next hour. So, what we're doing is we're going to look at the deployment of entrepreneurship and education in our college to better situate ourselves and see the context of what we're going to present today and how it evolved over a few years. We're going to also present some theoretical foundations and notions to help you and give you tools to follow the presentation and continue your thinking afterwards, your reflections on this afterwards. We also are going to bring you into our community of practice, and I'm going to talk about that in a few moments, but we had the chance to put in place in Cégep de Sainte-Foy a practice community in entrepreneurship and education, and we have been able to discover different communities that way. We're going to share that with you. As Nicole said, it's really in varied faculties and varied subjects. It'll be interesting. Then we're going to take your questions and present some complementary tools as well. All of this is to accomplish the following objectives: to demystify entrepreneurship in education and democratize it, because it's an approach that sometimes we see more in admin programs, administration programs, but this is an approach we can implement in different faculties and different colleges. So we are going to share practices that shine a light on the transferability of our approach, and propose some theoretical notions and resources that are complementary to what we are sharing today. So before going any further, as Nicole said, you may have received or by email an observation log, and we sent that in a printable version. Maybe some of you didn't have the opportunity to print it, but if you have it in your hands, it would be a great time to take it out. And if not, you can just take some notes on your thinking around this subject today. So it's a tool to allow you to keep a note of your questions and your thinking around what we're going to present. So we have a first question. We would like you to take the time with your log and enter in there what pedagogical entrepreneurship is. So I'm going to get you to take a little bit of time and do that. Take some notes on what entrepreneurship in education, or education about entrepreneurship, what it means to you. Yes, it's a good idea. If you want to be very, feel free to share it in the chat as well. And if not, the idea of put it in the chat could be a bit personal, but you can feel free to do that if you want to. I'm going to let you have 30 more seconds. It's don't know if you have enough time or not. I don't see you, but I'll give a little bit more time before we continue. So we will continue our exploration throughout this webinar and explore different elements that may creep into your perception. So I'm going to continue on with the presentation of our history of the deployment of educational entrepreneurship in Cégep de Sainte-Foy. So what you have to know is I'm presenting this in a very linear fashion today, but there were, of course, many bifurcations back and forth that brought us to our common vision of entrepreneurship today. So first, before 2017, there was already a lot of entrepreneurship in our college, but it was in administration programs mostly. We were more around initiatives in line with different disciplines, some great initiatives that we saw with different profs who were very much engaged with these ideas. And then from there, in 2017, the Cégep had the will to deploy entrepreneurship in a more transversal way and to build entrepreneurial capacity. So we wanted to take that out of the silo and have it reach more students so they can learn about entrepreneurship. So in between 2017 and 2023, we had the opportunity to experiment different types of projects in entrepreneurial pedagogy and in different universes. So that brought us to realize a lot of different things, but a big challenge as well, which was that when we talk about entrepreneurship in our community, we didn't always talk about the same thing in the same way. In 2023, we proposed a common vision of entrepreneurship, a common definition to help guide us, which is the following. Cégep de Sainte-Foy, we define entrepreneurship as being a capacity to act on opportunities and transform an idea into action with the intention of creating value for society. And so what we must know is when we talk about creating value, you can talk about financial value, like a more typical kind of business or enterprise, but it could also be cultural value, social value, or environmental value. And this idea of creating value really, I think, allowed us to coalesce around a common vision and to assemble around this vision what is the different types of projects, entrepreneurial, personal, or enterprise projects, all to do with entrepreneurship, which brought us in 2024 to adopt a document, an institutional document for orienting our vision, to give us a foundation for developing our service offering for entrepreneurs. It also is a great tool to build mobilization because we could use it to contact and discuss with different teams and make sure we're on the same page with terms of vision and what's happening on the ground. 2024-2025, last year, we had the opportunity to implement a pilot project for a community of practice in entrepreneurial pedagogy with 7 profs and different programs and different faculties, and it was over a full year. We met half a day per month throughout the year, and we continued the project this year. We carried it over, so this semester we are still experimenting the pilot project for our community of practice. How did that all work out? It allowed us to offer a space to teachers, to profs, to talk about the challenges of integrating entrepreneurship in education. So it's a bit of a safe space where we did some co-development for the first session, and then the second session we worked on common projects. In this community of practice, we also had the opportunity to develop a partnership with Université de Laval, more specifically the Chair of Leadership in Education and Development of Entrepreneurship and Entrepreneurial Spirit. So it's a bit of a long name, but we developed these partnerships, and in our community of practice, we associated a research project to it, and also the benefit of a teacher researcher with us throughout our meetings, a prof and researcher who is here with us today, Mathias Pépin, who is a prof at Université Laval and the holder of this chair of research. So Mathias will take the microphone and present for a bit. I am co-holder of this chair with my colleague Marie-Pierre Tremblay, who works on the subjects that are connected to entrepreneurship. I don't know if it was mentioned yet, but obviously it's in this community of practice, and more particularly in the second part of the community of practice, meaning common projects that we've designated and decided to work together on. Is the webinar that came out of that. This is the webinar that came out of that, and a presentation we've done at the conference of the AQPC before today. So this was one of our common projects, which allowed us to try to go a bit further in our common understanding of entrepreneurial pedagogy. So obviously, all this wonderful group of profs and the colleges are getting together around this idea of entrepreneurial pedagogy and thinking about this concept. And probably after 1 year, we can't tell you exactly what entrepreneurial pedagogy is, but we can talk about it as best we can and the way we've formed these concepts, starting with what we saw on the ground in the classroom and a bit of theoretical content as well. One of the first things we want to clarify from the outset is that we're trying to develop through entrepreneurial pedagogy essentially the spirit of enterprise. And for the students, in your case, I am a FSA, Faculté de Sciences d'Administration. I'm in administration at Université Laval, but I also have a degree in psychopedagogy. That I come from both worlds, and what was interesting for me in my doctoral studies is entrepreneurship in children. So I always use the word student. In this case. So we're making a difference this morning between two concepts that are pretty close: the spirit of enterprise and spirit of entrepreneurship. We talk about entrepreneurial spirit that contains both. So when we talk about entrepreneurial spirit, we want to develop the spirit of enterprise in the students, meaning we've seen this in some of the definitions: the capacity of the students to take action, to take the initiative, take on responsibility in the classroom, not by opposition, but in contrast with another concept, which is the spirit of enterprise, where we're going to talk a little bit more about creating businesses, enterprises. We're talking about entrepreneurship that will create enterprises, businesses. In both cases, we want to create value. Maybe it's an important concept that we can revisit, but the value we want to create is not necessarily the same. In one side, it's more economical. The other one is more around self-actualization and self-development. So we're going to talk more about this idea of enterprising actions, and how we want to understand this notion of the spirit of enterprise is through some work that was done by the Commission Européenne, that is called Entrecomp with a P, Entrecomp, which is the entrepreneurial skills. And in this wheel of reference, the Commission Européenne define the spirit of entrepreneurship or the spirit of enterprise in a very wide way, the same way we define the spirit to innovate or to be enterprising. So these are 15 a skill set of 15 skills, and what we want to develop in the students when we want to develop their spirit of entrepreneurship, enterprising spirit. So three main dimensions to this wheel. There is a whole part of it that is oriented towards action. So as you can see in green, identifying opportunities, implement your ideas. There's a whole part that is more around project management, how to plan, find, and manage resources, work in collaboration with others, and a whole part that is intrapersonal, which is the capacity to mobilize others, which is not the same as working with others. We talk more about leadership, motivating your team, and perseverance, and it's a bit of more of a personal, on the personal level. So it's not the only ways to define the entrepreneurial spirit, but that's what we chose to be able to have a point of reference and a common frame to understand what we seek to develop. So that's all for me, Suzy. So, Marie-Claire, I will now hand it over to you. Yes, hello, Marie-Claire Bouchard is my name. I teach in early childhood education. I've always been motivated in my teaching by the idea of making my students as active as possible, in bringing them to make decisions, take initiative, give their point of view, And I hope that my students feel concerned by what happens in the classroom and that they are participating in developing their own skills and their own learning. One day, I had some people come to my classroom, how to build and give a presentation on how to build a cooperative project, an entrepreneurship project with students. So the idea that is that my students could put in place if they ever work at a elementary school or for babysitting, they can mobilize for childcare. They can mobilize young people through cooperative projects that are of an entrepreneurial nature. So following this meeting, I said, well, what if I used this cooperative project of entrepreneurship as a pedagogical approach in my classroom? And I thought for this to make sense, to create value, why not start from a need of one school of after a school care, or they can tell me what their needs are so that we can invest some efforts throughout the semester into a project. The whole classroom would participate in this project. That's what I decided to begin working on. I started that the next semester. I got into contact with an elementary school. The need that was expressed by them was how to better use the different zones in the um, yard and the playground of the school. So we had some brainstorming and with the class, and we kept one of the ideas. So there's a whole process of to be able to whittle it down to one idea. The idea was to create a map a space, and on each map we could identify ideas on how to use the backyard, the playground of a school in different ways, different zones, playground, grass, kinds of different zones for the children to play. And we divided into different tasks to be able to accomplish our goals. And so then we built a schedule. And that's where the students got together into teams, and each group, a subgroup, was responsible for different tasks. And to ensure the correct evolution of the project, there was a back and forth between working as small groups and coming back into plenary in the classroom setting so that everybody is aware of the other team's projects and everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows what's coming and what's been done. We wanted to involve the whole classroom into one project. It was a new thing for me. I had this idea of breaking them up into teams to work on one project per team in the beginning. The fact that we could involve the whole classroom into one project created a new dynamic, a new interplay between the different groups. For example, if one group is responsible for planning an activity, the other group must be responsible for preparing the material for this activity. And the other group will communicate, do the communication work, reserve the room, get some people registered. There's some teamwork that has to happen between the three groups. And I see somebody with their hand raised. Jonathan, yes, just a question with regards to what you were saying, because it's really a wonderful project. But I was wondering, how do you develop these skills of the different people if they all work together as a big group? Well, in my case, the skills that I wanted to instill was teamwork and ensure educational services in a classroom setting, in an educational setting. So it was a project where the students had to work as a team and give services, ensure the dispensation of services of an educational nature. So it worked pretty well. I gave an important place in auto evaluation with regards to teamwork and working as a group and situate themselves. The students could situate themselves with regards to their activities and giving examples throughout the project. I also evaluate the process. So the participation, being prepared, accomplishing certain tasks. And at certain times, I invite the students to do tasks individually. For example, in the map holder project. We agreed that each student would be responsible for one mapping to deploy, to detail a way of using the yard for the students. And so I want to make sure continuously that all the students are involved and participating in production. Thank you, Marie-Claire. If you want to go to the next slide. So what you saw, we maybe didn't prepare you enough for that. This is what we see in the community of practice. We just heard a case study, an example that Marie-Claire is doing in her classroom. A lot of other things are happening, of course. We don't have time to cover all of it. We meet regularly and talk about all this stuff, and that's what happens in the community of practice. You already know the principle. Somebody presents a situation, a case, and the group co-builds and co-designs the solutions to help the person fix their problem or improve their practice with a lot of feedback on what was done and what was implemented. So that's what we're proposing today as how we're going to present things. The first presentation from Marie-Pierre, and then also you heard our colleague who is in nursing, who has integrated our community of practice a bit later. He plays the role of the person that's trying to understand what is happening in the community of practice that he joined after the presentation of a few cases and discussions between us. So we are presenting that today to be able to give you an example of how we're doing things in a concise way, is to present four examples of practice organized around four pillars of pedagogy, entrepreneurial pedagogy. We're going to talk about that later. What was just presented is the cooperative pillar presented by Marie-Claire, and there are four pillars that they are not independent. They are related to each other. We started with this one, but all four of them are important in entrepreneurial pedagogy. And the message we want to leave you today with regards to this entrepreneurial pillar is that what you heard is an explanation of projects around cooperation. Normally a cooperative project, a collaborative project like this that we heard about in my classroom is a project that is complicated enough that it can't be done by one person alone. So we will have people in an interdependent position, in a positive interdependent situation. They could not do the project alone. They cannot do it in a reasonable time frame anyway. And because we are in education, in a school, we want to separate out the projects into different parts, and that's the role that Marie-Claude plays to make sure that everybody is invested in the project, but also that everybody's role, everybody's work contributes to the collective success of the project in the classroom. So, Suzy, I don't know if you want to take over now. Marie-André is the second person to present a case in her classroom. I will let you introduce yourself, Marie-André. Yes, hello everybody. I am in multimedia at Cégep de Sainte-Foy. We learn to do web development, and I'm talking more specifically about a class called Analyse et Conception, Analysis and Conception, and Analysis and Design, where they will build authentic projects, a website, an interactive page. We do this for real clients or real projects. So this class exists for about 10 years now, and in 2023 I had two students that were already involved in the Entrepreneurial Club Cégep de Sainte-Foy. They came and met with me a few weeks before, well, at the end of the fall semester, preparing for the winter semester, to say, well, it would be really great if we could integrate entrepreneurial pedagogy in your class for analysis and design. I said, ooh, that's very interesting, but what's the difference between what I'm already doing? I'm already doing real entrepreneurial projects. And so I went and got some information and did some homework. I talked to Suzy. I joined the community of practice, and that's where discovered I saw these different pillars, these four pillars. We just saw the cooperative one, but there's also responsibility, experience, and reflection. Those are the other pillars. So I was really interested in the reflection pillar. So to put the group into a context that facilitates reflective feedback and self-regulation and thinking. And these are students. They don't like this kind of activity where they have to give feedback and to give thought out answers and take the time to think critically about things. I put that aside, we really will focus on the concrete and building these projects. What was interesting for me in all of this was the aspect of responsibility. I found that very interesting to share decisions with my students, to get them involved, considering with the modalities of evaluation and the different projects that we were building, of course, centered around skill building. I noticed and I really appreciated this aspect, the aspect of the importance of creating value for my students. And at the end of the class, the students came to see me, and some of them said, "What is the connection with pedagogical entrepreneurship?" And so I said, "Okay." So then I noticed that I left the students more into concrete how to do things instead of expanding their knowledge a little bit more into theory as well as practice. So I looked at this table that was built by Mathias Pepin based on the work of Chum and the learning entrepreneurship under the angle of self-reflection. So I really thought it was striking, the three phases of reflection: pre-action, action, and post-action. So I really have to take the time. I told myself I really have to take the time to think about this and integrate this into my classes. Marie-Claire helped me with that. I took example on her. I read some of her documents and I put that aside for a while. So the second edition of my class, I decided to add these aspects of reflection and thinking at the beginning of the project, through the project, and at the end of the project to give feedback and reflective thinking, formulate objectives, and think about obstacles and how to get around them, and understand and define what we've learned at the end of the project. So the third edition of this class with entrepreneurial pedagogy, I added two phases of critical thinking. The motivation in November that we see sometimes, they have trouble mobilizing themselves, the students, and really observed in this second phase of reflection and action, kind of thinking, how are we going to get to the end of the semester, readjust our objectives, and get to where we need to go. So I was able to get some concrete results on this second phase of thinking, of reflection. Yes, Jonathan? I forgot to introduce myself. Jonathan, Cégep de Sainte-Foy, nursing. I like what you're saying, but I have a question. What were the results of doing all this? What were the effects for you? I think it's more for the students. We continue to do projects, but we do projects for real clients, but we develop our spirit of entrepreneurship, our entrepreneurial spirit and capacity to formulate objectives, yet organize, collaborate around these objectives, and to understand what we've learned and what we should do, what's coming. What I observed in the next semester, last year, I noticed that the students, in the context of their activity and their internship, they had a better knowledge of things. In our internship log, we asked them to set objectives for professional development. It's the first time in 20 years that I saw some deeper thinking with regards to where I'm at, where do I want to go, what do I need to learn. And so it really helped the students to better know themselves and their path and their objectives. Thank you. So I talked about four pillars, and Marie-André mentioned them in her presentation. What she talked about more specifically, and this is the one we wanted to focus on, is the reflection. So what the first iteration, and we built this along the way. So this reflective pillar is that reflection is a type of metacognition that happens after action. It's not just thinking about what we've done after having done it. The pillar called reflection is also metacognition, is thinking about what we are doing. This idea of a reflection and into action, and reflection that is pre-action. You can project yourself into what you're going to do, imagine it, and then when we are doing it, you can reflect on what we are doing. And then the post-action reflection, they go back and look at what was done and draw some lessons and appreciate and understand what we have done. The other part is the question of creating value. We talked about this on many occasions. I think Marie-André made a really important point. What is this creation of value when we do entrepreneurial pedagogy? It was something that you can discuss amongst yourselves, what it means for you as a teacher. But also what Marie-André said is that we seek to derive value for our students so that it all makes sense for them. So it's an element that I wanted to highlight, and maybe we can discuss this more at length. So Audrey, I will let you introduce yourself. We have our third pillar, which we will cover now. So, hello everybody, Audrey Baillargeon. I am a teacher in administration and administrative techniques at Cégep de Sainte-Foy since October 2021. I didn't have any training in pedagogy. I come from the job market, from the labor market, and I decided to begin with Performa at Université de Sherbrooke in 2022 to get better tools and knowledge around pedagogy. So in these classes, they developed these strategies. I had to choose an approach, a pedagogical strategy, and learn about it and apply it, implement it in my class. So in my class, we had many approaches. I had to find an approach that fits with me, with my style, with activities, and get the students to participate, and so that they and I could enjoy the process. I don't know if you're like me, but we always learn better when you apply things and experience things. So I wanted to have active pedagogy, experiential pedagogy, and create value for these students. Before the beginning of this class, I went to AccuPC for the first time, and there was a conference on entrepreneurial pedagogy. I didn't know what it was, and I said, I'm going to go and discover that and find out what it is. And I decided to dive deeper and learn more. I thought it was very interesting, and I bought a book. I listened to some podcasts. I went and checked some websites, and I said it would be really interesting and really a great approach for my class called the Entrepreneurial Spirit, Discovering Your Potential. That is the name of my class. So for me, enterprising spirit and the spirit of entrepreneurship, there's a fine line between them, but it's an advantage to be well versed in both. So when I discovered some lectures and podcasts, and I read the document that Susie was talking about from Sainte-Foy Cégep about entrepreneurship, and I referred Entrecom that they proposed, that they presented earlier. So the entrepreneurial abilities, skills. So I thought that was very interesting. A reference table with 15 abilities on 15 weeks. So that's a great way to plan my class. So I said, okay, for 15 weeks, I could really give my students some experiences related to these 15 skills. How can I do this? get the students to experience their creativity and identify opportunities. So I started thinking, I did a lot of research, and then I said, okay, each week I would build teams that would work together with students in a random way in my class. And then I would propose a surprise activity. Each week they would come in and they would experience something new without being prepared, a complete surprise. So that brought forward many skills from the reference table because on 15 weeks, it's not a long time. So I had to have weeks that didn't have any activities uh, because of the way the semester is structured. So the examples are the following. For example, for identifying opportunities, I said to the students, come in with an object, something not interesting for you anymore that you bring from home, and they could get together as a team and choose the object that they thought had the better potential to sell in the Cégep, and then they would put together a, how can I say this? So a market research to know where you would sell it, what price, what is your target audience. And then I said, go around the Cégep, and they had to go and sell their object and with their ideas as a group. So it generated a lot of interesting situations. Some groups were able to sell, some not, and an elevator pitch kind of thing. They had to sell themselves and sell their project, and then they go through the Cégep and do that. And then at the end, we had a pitch contest to see who got the most money and why. And then we did some feedback and thinking around were you going to the right place? Is your price the right price? Is it the right target audience? Some people were selling sunglasses. It was really sunny outside. They went to see students that didn't have glasses. They explained this in the class. We understood their process and their learning, and it was very interesting. And we gave the money to the Fondation du Cégep that helps students that have financial difficulties. As a second example, I can say exploit your creativity, and I found an activity. They had to create a tool to save eggs. I went to get eggs at the grocery store, and they had to build a prototype, and they had a budget, had to buy some components and buy some stuff to build something to keep the eggs safe. We did some experimentation, tried different things. It was very interesting, and we always come back at the end to the important concepts and skills and have thinking around that. So I was very lucky. At the Cégep de Sainte-Foy, we have guidance counselors that are really interested in entrepreneurship. I met one and a few of them, and it really helped me with what I was doing to really define activities that would be interesting in an entrepreneurial way. At the end of the semester, I reached my objectives. My students took action. It created value. They were very happy. I had a great time learning with them and teaching them, but it was pretty difficult. It was very demanding. A question, Jonathan? Yes. I wanted you to explain why was it so difficult? Well, it was difficult because it was a new activity every week. And given that it's the first time I did it, I really had to be rigorous in my activities, my preparation. I had to buy materials, reserve rooms. I had to bring people in to present. It was a big challenge. Let's be real here. So for my objectives, it really helped that I was part of the community of practice because I wanted to give my students this experience. And in discussing with my colleagues, with Mathias, we were able to see areas where we need to pay special attention. And one of the things is to mobilize the students taking charge, to delegate the control of each activity a little bit to them. So it was difficult, but next semester I have a class in entrepreneurial projects, and I want to do this experiment over again. So I'm not done yet. Thank you, Audrey. can go to the next slide. Thank you. What Audrey talked about is the third pillar, is this pillar of experience and action. And as you can imagine, is to put the students into action situations. We even with the challenge, the entrepreneurship challenge, which we heard about, we often associate entrepreneurial pedagogy with entrepreneurship in a classroom, with entrepreneurial projects. And we heard also in the two interventions before that we worked on a project basis. But projects are not necessarily projects that are a whole semester. We have here a great example with Audrey that shows that we can, at every class, offer a mini project to the students with a beginning and an end that are defined in one class block in one in the classroom time, and they don't need to do a huge project with many partners that requires a lot of time, money, and resources to be able to implement or realize. So what we see with Audrey, even if the community of practice helped her to build and relativize all this, it was a challenge, and it allowed us to link up with Louis Charles. That brings us to Louis Charles, who's going to talk about the last pillar, and you'll see why it all connects. He's going to talk about that. Yes, Louis Charles René. I teach economics in social science program. I wanted to favorize in the intro to economics. I wanted to favorize engagement in the students. Not easy necessarily. My objective was to increase success of the students and to reduce abandoned people dropping the class. So I wanted to do an approach by project. So I invited students to be interested in a non-profit with a community mission or a commercial mission in some cases. So we are following and partnering with a non-profit and something a bit more commercial this time. And so the interest in the students into this and the particularities of the environmental factors and integration with the other stakeholders in their environment. And throughout the semester, we looked at real questions on the, for example, that the board was asking. We went to visit them. We met their organization, their people. We met in their offices, and we could ask some questions and discussions that came out around the board and their economic environment and the challenges, and if we have the resources to respond. And the group would build a thesis or to write a thesis and an analysis to be able to. I was in charge of selecting the best work and sending it to the board at the end of the semester. So the students really enjoyed their time and their experience. They were capable of saying in their thinking exercises, individual or group questions, how to implement certain things, implement certain skills that they learned in a concrete way on the ground. It helped them to integrate all of this into their education. But I have to say that it was a fail with regards to the objectives, which was to increase success in the students and the reduction of people dropping their classes. So I didn't see any effect on that, unfortunately. But the students understood how important the things they were learning are, and they experimented different things, but I think that they were not. They didn't feel involved enough. Didn't feel like they had enough wherewithal or capacity to affect what was happening. So I was a bit obsessed with transferring everything I was doing to my colleagues. I didn't leave them enough room. I didn't have the same intention in the beginning as them to start this. So I would give them pre-written documents and documents that would follow the course plan very strictly. And so these were things that I had to learn, that was still at the learning stage and the responsibility stage. So the students in these activities would not have the opportunity enough to be independent and ask questions and have the capacity to act independently, and what are the strengths I want to build and what responsibilities I can take on to advance the project and our objectives. So it wasn't necessarily enough engagement in the project on their part. I didn't give them enough room. I thought I would. I did. But yes, Jonathan, why did you think that? Well, because even if we consider that for most of the group it was not necessarily a success, sometimes you plant some seeds in certain people, and a little bit later on that we see the effects. I met Suzy and Maude, and they talked about one of my students who they report was sent to the board in our project, and that student has reoriented her career, changed programs, and went to join the entrepreneurial club and became president of the entrepreneurship club, and was considered and said that one of the main factors in her decision was what we did in my class. So it did work for some people. So the and that's my choices I made. If I had to start over, and I did this semester, I had some of the same problems. I started in a little bit too safe a space, and I'm going to need a third iteration to try things out to get a finished product. I have the intention of really centering it around creation of value and let the students create and choose who they want to work for. Is it their family, an organization, a nonprofit, or a group? And identify the elements that they need to learn to answer these questions, and collectively, at the beginning of the semester, build their own learning plan throughout the semester to bring us to cover everything we need to cover, but also the different ways they have found to answer their questions and give them responsibility over their learning and answer the questions that they want to answer and get information for the people they want to serve. So I'm a little bit emotional. Yes, thank you, Louis Charles. You can see here our objective is not to scare you or intimidate you with regards to these experiences or experiments that don't always work perfectly, but you have before you some profs that thought very much around the practice, and that's the objective of the community of practice, is to present different cases, some that worked well, others not as well, and to co-build as a group, to co-design as a group how to respond to these objectives. None of the teachers were harmed during this community of practice. They are all alive and well and in good health and teaching. What was presented here by Louis Charles is the pillar of responsibility. This idea that is central in entrepreneurial pedagogy, not more important than the others, but very important nonetheless, is this idea that the students can take responsibility, can take on initiatives. And this is something that we see even in the different examples with Audrey. That's why I said that they were kind of interrelated. It's not always obvious to leave our comfort zone and to be able to implement tasks that will really be significant. We heard about creating value again. And that create value and that makes sense. And when it makes sense, the students will have more of an impetus to get involved and take more responsibility. So it's a great challenge. We see that in many of the testimonies we heard today. So I don't know, Suzy, if we really have time for questions. If you will, we had Jonathan Morin. Yes, I wanted to have Jonathan share his experience, his presentation, then we can take some questions. Yes, I want to thank you for sharing all of that. It was great to learn from all of you. And when I joined the community of practice, I wanted to see what I could learn and what I could contribute with regards to nursing as well. So I learned that pedagogy around entrepreneurship means a lot of things for different people. It's not just to create entrepreneurial organizations, but to act on initiative, creativity, co-design, co-reflection, and a lot of creation of value. So I was wondering what could be done in nursing to innovate, to improve practice, meet the needs of patients, the needs of clientele and society. So I said, maybe with the students, we can have kiosks on clinical prevention or information desks for people to create simulations in a clinical setting to help people manage things, community initiatives as well, testing, blood, giving blood, and all that kind of community stuff that we have done. That's been very inspiring for me and my students. You know, Jonathan, thank you for participating today, and all these testimonies were really inspiring and demonstrate the diversity of practices in entrepreneurial pedagogy. Nicole, I don't know if we had time for a few questions. There's 4 minutes. I have a question in the chat. Amelie, who is asking, she's not at your Cégep, would it be possible to participate in your community of practice? I invite you to go to the last slide and we will answer these questions. Yes, the community of practice is a community that is for Cégep de Sainte-Foy. So unfortunately, we cannot invite you to join us, but there's a research project that is a bit wider in scope that is related to self-teaching, and the chair that we talked about earlier, we created with my colleague Marie-Pierre a self-training on education and entrepreneurship that's free. You can just go and scan the QR code and follow. It's not long, 10-15 hours. There are tools, 5 modules with different tools that are shared. The project matrix, for example, different tables to clarify the thinking of the students to help guide them, but also for you as a teacher in entrepreneurship, and some tools to evaluate entrepreneurial skills of your students. And in the self-training, what we do with Cégep de Sainte-Foy is a in-person session, and we want to eventually build this into a community of practice throughout the province of Quebec to discuss these questions of pedagogical entrepreneurship at the primary, secondary, and college levels. That was the first point. The second point, maybe on the next slide, Susie, the next slide, no, this one, yes, this is the question of interdependency, interplay with 4 different pillars and 4 different experiences representing each one. So it's not just one pillar, it's really being able to do all of them, to be into entrepreneurial pedagogy. The pedagogical approach has to cover all of them. That's where things become more complicated, but also a lot of fun when we want to try some new things. I don't know if there are any other questions. Susie, if you want to do the closing. I don't know if there are any other questions. No more questions. So I will let Susie close the webinar. I think people really appreciated and enjoyed it. Yes, just to mention in closing that you will receive our slide deck following the presentation, following the webinar, and we'll go a little bit further. This is our contact information. All the emails are there. So we might not be able to bring you into our community of practice. We would love that, but if you want to build this kind of project, you can communicate with us and we will be happy to share our experience with you. And I hope we've inspired you and pushed you to take action and to leave your comfort zone a little bit. That's what all of us have done. We've reinvented ourselves, used a lot of creativity to create value for our students. So I hope all of you will be inspired by this. Thank you for having been with us today, and thank you to my colleagues for sharing their experience throughout this webinar. Thank you. It was very interesting, very diverse, and I really like the idea. I was the head of a community of practice for 15 years to see all of you together and to see that all of you are working so great together. It would be wonderful to see all of you in the same room, but I really enjoyed your presentation. Very inspiring. Thank you. And I hope to meet all of you in person in a conference soon. Thank you and have a wonderful day, everybody. Goodbye.